Om Shuklam Bharadaram Vishnum Shashivarnam Chaturbhujam Prasannavadanam Dhyayet Sarva Vignopashantahe. Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu Bhavitvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shantihi. Agajanana Padmarkam Gajanana Maharnisham Anekadantam Bhaktanam Ekadantam Upasmahe Shri Mahaganapataye Namaha Gurave Sarva Lokanam Bishaje Bhavaroginam Nidhaye Sarva Vidyanam Shri Dakshinamurtaye Namaha Asmad Guru Charanarvindhabhyam Namaha Vasudeva Sutam Devam Kamsa Chanuramardanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vandhe Jagadgurum Jnananandamahim Devam Nirmalaspatikakritim Adharam Sarva Vidyanam Shri Hayagrivam Upasmahe Shri Hayagriva Namaha Saraswati Namastubhyam Varade Kamarupini Vidyarambam Karishyami Siddhir Bhavatu Me Sada Shri Mahasaraswatye Namaha Uma Komala Hastabja Sambhavitalatakam Hiranyakundalam Vande Kumaram Pushkarasrajam Vetrivel Muruganak Hara Haro Hara Lokaviryam Mahapujyam Sarva Rakshakaram Vibhum Parvati Hridayanandam Shastaram Pranamamyaham Swami Sharanamayappa Vagarta Viva Sampriktau Vagarta Pratipattaye Jagadah Pitarau Vande Parvati Parameshwarau Shri Parvati Parameshwarabhyam Namaha Komhalam Kujayan Venum Shyamaloyam Kumarakah Veda Vedyam Parabrahma Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Asmad Guru Charanarvindhabhyam Namaha Shri Krishna Govinda Hare Murare Shri Nath Narayana Vasudeva Shri Krishna Govinda Hare Murare Shri Nath Narayana Vasudeva Shri Krishna Govinda Hare Murare Shri Nath Narayana Vasudeva Pitambaram Karavirajita Chakrashanka Kaumodaki Sarasijam Karuna Samudram Radha Sahayam Atisundhara Mandahasam Vatalayesham Anisham Hridibhavayami Krishno Rakshatu Mam Charachara Guruhu Krishnam Namasye Sadha Krishne Naiva Surakshito Hamasakritam Krishnaya Dattam Hanaha Krishna Deva Samudbhavo Mama Vibho Krishnasya Dasosmyaham Krishne Bhakti Rajanchalastu Bhagavan He Krishna Tubhyam Namaha Shri Guruvayurappa Sharanam Namranham Sannidatte Satatamapi Purastairanabhyartitanapi Artan Kamhanajasram Vitarati Paramananda Sandram Gatim Cha Itham Nisheshalabhyo Niravadika Phalah Parijato Hare Tvam Kshudram Tam Shakravati Drumam Abhilashati Vyartamarte Vrajohyam Shri Guruvayurappa Sharanam Shri Bhattapadam Anisham Hridibhavayami Vamshi Vibhushitakarat Navaniradabat Pitambarat Arunabimba Phaladharostat Purnendu Sundharamukhat Aravindhanetrat Krishnat Param Kimapi Tattvamaham Najane Kairandum Kupinyan Bindu Mirakunno Niraja Lochana Ninodhai Etinu Manyane Kumbirenda Toru Ritiyil Nienne Palikennai Krishna Hare Jaya Krishna Hare Jaya Krishna Hare Jaya Krishna Hare. Good morning, everyone. So we don't have to do any review since we just had the Parayanam last week. So we'll get started with 54 and 55 today. So let's see. So Srilata Garu, you can be a student. Anandji, you can be a student for 54. Then half a Narayani and Aarti, you can be student. Okay. Okay. So 54, 55 are of course connected chapters. So 54 is the reason why Kaliya came to Yamuna, and 55 is Kali and Ardhanam. So that's happening in 55. Okay, so we'll start with 54. Stanza 1. Tvatsevotka saubharirnama purvam kalindyanta dwadashabdam tapasyan मीनव्राते स्नेहवान् भोगलोले तार्क्ष्यं साक्षात् ऐक्षताग्रे कदाचित्. So long time ago, so this is not happening at present, right? In Vrindavan. So there was a sage called Saubhari who was tapasyan, who was always very devoted to you. And to get even more closer to you, he does a tapas where he's under the water for 12 years. He's doing tapas. So there are a few other people who have done such a tapas, right? In Prachetas, they did a tapas for several years, more than maybe 100 or 1,000 or something like that, in the tank in Guruvayur that comes in the 10th Dasakam. There is one other person who did a tapas underwater, right? Or he was underwater. Duryodhan, when the war was getting over and he realized that they are losing, he then got some boon and then he went and started from Durvasa, where he started doing tapas under the water. So they get more powers. That's when Krishna goes and tells Yudhishthira to tell him to come out, right? By triggering his ego, and then he comes out, and that's when eventually he gets killed. But anyway, this Saubhari is performing tapas for Dwada Shabdam for 12 years underwater. And when he's sitting underwater and doing tapas for 12 years, what happens is there's still a little bit of that moham in him, that he gets attached to the fishes which are around him. Because he's living underwater, there are other fish and other families which are there. So he starts looking at those fish at point, and then he starts getting attached to them because he sees them every day, right? When he's sitting underwater. So one day, what happens is Garuda comes there. So that's what Tarksham is referring to Garuda. So one day Garuda happens to come to that place. And this is right now in Kalindi. Kalindi means Yamuna. It's coming from the Kalinda mountain. So it's called Kalindi. So it's referring to Yamuna river. So Tvat Sevotkas Saubharir Nama Purvam, Kalindhyantar Dwada Shabdam Tapasyan Meena Vrate Snehavan Bhoga Lole, Tarkshyam. Next word you can break it as Sakshat Aikshataagre if you want to. That's easier that way. Tarkshyam Sakshat Aikshataagre Kadachit. Tvatsevotka Saubharirnama Purvam Kalindhyantar Dwadashabdam Tapasyan Meenavrate Snehavan Bhogalole Tarkshyam Sakshat Aikshataagre Kadachite. Go ahead.
Computer table then.
Smita Garu, you want to go ahead or?
Okay, sure. Yeah. Tvatsevotka Saubharirnama Purvam Kalindyantar Dwadashabdam Tapasyan Meenavrate Snehavan Bhogalole Tarksham Sakshat Aikshataagre Kadachit. Tvatsevotka Saubharirnama Purvam Kalindyantar Dwadashabdam Tapasyan Meenavrate Snehavan Bhogalole Tarksham Sakshat Aikshataagre Kadachit.
Tvatsevotak Saubharirnama Purvam Kalindyantar Dwadashabdam Tapasyan Meenavrate Snehavan Bhogalole Tarksham Sakshat Aikshataagre Kadachit.
Ananji, that first line, first word, Tvat Sevotkas.
Tvatsevokas, isn't it?
Yeah, Tvat. Tvat is one word. Tvat Sevotkas.
Tvatsevokas Saubharirnama Purvam Kalindyantar Dwadashabdam Tapasyan Meenavrate Snehavan Bhogalole तार्क्ष्यं साक्षादैषदाग्रे कदाचित्.
Answer 2. Twadvaham tam sakshudham trikshasoohnam meenam kanchijjakshatam lakshayan saha taptaschitte shaptavanatra chetvam jantun bhokta jeevitam chapi mokta. So one day this Garuda comes there.
Rajesh, one question. Rajesh, one question. In the previous stanza, what did you say for the Yamuna river? Which word represents
Kalindi.
that?
Kalindi.
Kalindi. Okay.
Yeah.
Kalindi is the mountain.
No, Kalinda is the mountain.
Kalinda is the mountain. Okay.
And
And
because the river
Kalindi
comes from
refers to-
Kalinda mountain, it's called Kalindi.
Okay. Okay.
Because the Kalindi rivers are generally named as after women, right? Like
From the
the
mountain.
female gender. So that's why it's Kalindi.
Okay.
Okay. So anybody you know whose name is Kalindi, you now know what the meaning of their name is. That's what it is. So here, now what happens is now this Garuda comes there and he ends up, he's hungry, like, and the bird also eats fish. So he ends up picking that one particular day, he ends up picking the head of the fish and the clan who is there, the head of the fish, and the Garuda eats that fish off. And when he eats that fish, suddenly, and we don't realize it, but then because Saubhari is sitting underwater and he's constantly observing all these things, right, over several years, and he starts seeing how, because the leader of the clan, when the leader of the clan was eaten, all the other fish are now in a very confused state because they've lost their leader. And because he had got so attached to the fish that he's now getting very disturbed that the fishes are now going out of control and they're all very unhappy. So what he says is, he then curses Garuda, saying that if you come here, Jantun Bhokta, if you come here to eat anymore, okay, Jeevitam Chapi Mokta, I'll give you moksha, you will die, right? So you cannot come here to eat any of these fishes anymore. The Saubhari is saying Garuda that you cannot come here and eat the fish, right? So it's a very controversial thing, right? Because fish is one of the food for Garuda, so that is part of the food chain. So he's now saying you cannot do it, and he's disrupting that ecosystem, right? So that is one angle to it. But anyway, what also happens, and this is not in Narayaneeyam, but what happens eventually is this Saubhari, because he's seeing all these things happening, somehow his tapas also gets disrupted, and then he ends up giving up his tapas, and then he wants to go lead a family life. So he then goes to a king, and then he marries the king's daughters, multiple of them, and then his life changes. But eventually he realizes everything, he gives up everything, and then comes back doing tapas. So now all of that is not in here, but here what he's telling Garuda is you cannot come to this Kalindi river anymore, right? He blocks him from coming. So Twadvaham tam sakshudham triksha sunum, comma, meenam kanchij jakshatam. So there's a ij there. Kanchij jakshatam lakshayan saha taptash chitte shaptavan atra chetvam, comma, jantun bhokta jeevitam chapi mokta. Twadvaham tam sakshudham trikshasoohnam meenam kanchid jakshatam lakshayan saha taptaschitte shaptavanatra chetvam jantun bhokta jeevitam chapi mokta.
Twadvaham tam sakshudham trakshusunam meenam kanchijakshatam lakshayan saha taptashchite shaptavanatra chetatvam jantun bhokta jeevitam chapi mokta.
The first word is triksha sunum.
Triksha, okay.
Okay, and then the last thing, something I'll correct when you come there again. Yeah, go ahead.
Sure. Twadvaham tam sakshudham trikshasunam meenam kanchijakshatam lakshayan saha taptashchite shaptavanatra chetatvam.
Sorry, that word. Shaptavan atra chetvam.
Chetvam. Okay.
Yeah.
Taptashchite shaptavanatra chetatvam.
I think you're saying chetatvam. It's chetvam.
Chetvam. Sorry, yeah. Chetvam jantun bhokta jeevitam chapi mokta.
And also the third line, right? First word. I think when you're saying it, it's sounding like taptas chite. It is taptas chitte. It's it and then a te.
Taptas chitte. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Tadvaham tam chakshudam trikshasунum meenam kanjijjakshadam lakshayan saha taptachitte shaptavanatra chetvam jandun bhokta jividam cha vimokta. Tadvaham tam chakshudam trikshasунum meenam kanjijjakshadam lakshayan swaha taptachitte shaptavanatra chetvam jandun bhokta jividam cha vimokta.
Stanza 3.
Rajesh, the second line, Lakshayan Saha or Saha?
Saha.
Saha. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
First line, Tadvaham tam chakshudham. So
Sa.
we have Sakaram, for that we have the R. So
Triksha.
No.
Which word? Sakshudam or Trikshasунam? Which word?
So the Trikshasунam you are talking about,
Yeah.
it is actually Ta with Rikaram in the vowels, right? Is that correct?
Yeah, Tr.
Yeah.
Atra.
Yeah. So it's not actually Tri, it's Tr.
Tr.
Yeah, okay, got it.
Stanza 3. Tasmin kale kaliyah shveladarpat sarparate kalpitam bhagamashnan tena krodat tvatpadam bhoja bhaja pakshakshiptastadurapam payogat. So then what was also happening maybe earlier or at the same time is there was this in the area called, and this is not in Narayaneeyam, but when you Google it, they say in the island of Ramanaka, right? And if you, I don't know where, if you Google it, it'll say it is in Fiji. But anyway, there's an island called Ramanaka where there were a lot of snakes. And one of the head of the snakes there was this serpent called Kaliya, which had multiple hoods, right? And this Garuda also used to go there to eat snakes. And because he used to go there, and then he used to grab multiple snakes, and then some snakes he used to eat and some snakes he used to discard. So all these snakes then decided, you know what, this is not going to work out because the unnecessarily snakes are getting killed. So they said, every time you come, we will give you an offering of snakes. That way you don't have to kill other snakes. So when they started doing that, but this Kaliya, you know, snakes also eat other snakes sometimes. So because Kaliya was the head of that place, so whatever offerings they were keeping for Garuda, Kaliya used to go and take it. So one day when Garuda comes, he sees that Kaliya had taken some of the other snakes which had kept for him. So he then goes and beats Kaliya with his wings, right? So Kaliya gets injured, and now Kaliya the snake is afraid of Garuda, even though he was extremely powerful and a strong snake. So what he does is, so he somehow comes to know, and I don't know how, but he comes to know that Garuda is prohibited from coming to Kalindi river. So then what happens is Kaliya then ends up moving to Kalindi river. That way Garuda will not trouble him anymore. So because of that, at the same time, at that time, Tasmin Kaliye, so in that Payaha, in that river, Kaliya now enters because Garuda cannot come there anymore. So Tasmin Kale Kaliyaha. So like I said, is anytime Ksha is coming, K as the Ksha letter is coming in thing, you have to say the Visarga in front of that. So this happens in Vishnu Sahasranam, Devi Matmyam, or Lalita Sahasranam, anywhere. When that Ksha is coming, you have to say that Visarga. So after you have to say Kaliyaha, but you don't have to necessarily pause there, right? So just make a note that you have to say that Kaliyaha Shvela Darpate, comma Sarparatehe is there. So put the ich sound. Sarparate Kalpitam Bhagamashnan Tena Krodat Twat. So there's a it, double it coming there. Krodat Twat Padam Bhoja Bhaja, comma Paksha Shiptas Tadurapam Payogat. Tasmin Kale Kaliyah Shveladarpate Sarparate Kalpitam Bhagamashnan Tena Krodat Tvat Padam Bhoja Bhaja पक्षक्षिप्तस्तद्दुरापं पयोगात्
तस्मिन् काले कालियः क्ष्वेलदर्पात् सर्पारातेः कल्पितं भागमश्नन् तेन क्रोधात् त्वत्पदां भोजबाजा पक्षक्षिप्तस्तदुरापं
तद्दुरापं. So you're like so it's 2 letters there. Tadhurapam.
Okay. तस्मिन् काले कालियः क्ष्वेलदर्पात् सर्पारातेः कल्पितं भागमश्नन् तेन क्रोधात् त्वत्पदां भोजबाजा पक्षक्षिप्तस्तद्दुरापं पयोगात्
तस्मिन् काले कालियः क्षेलदर्पाद् सर्पारादे कल्पितं भोगमश्नन् तेन क्रोधात् त्वत्पदाम्बोजबाजा पक्षक्षिप्तस्तद्दुरापं पयोगात्.
Anandji, second line, last word, bhagamashnan.
तस्मिन् काले कालियः क्षेलदर्पाद् सर्पारादे कल्पितं भागमश्नन् तेन क्रोधात् त्वत्पदाम्बोजबाजा पक्षक्षिप्तस्तद्दुरापं पयोगात्.
Stanza 4. घोरे तस्मिन् सूरजानीरवासे तीरे वृक्षा विक्षताः क्ष्वेलवेगात् पक्षिव्राताः पेतुरभ्रे पतन्तः कारुण्यार्द्रं त्वन्मनस्तेन जातम्. So kshvela means poison. So that's why you see that word kshvela come multiple times in this stanza, right? So because Kaliya is now coming and living in this river water, so technically I think he was not residing in the river itself. So what happens is sometimes when the river is flowing, it creates like a separate like a stationary water area on the side because of the curve it sometimes takes, and it starts, and that area becomes a large pool of water, pond of water, right? Because if it's a flowing water, then the poison may not necessarily reside there. Water continues to flow. So he was in a stationary area of Yamuna which had formed on the side. So because he was there, then because of the poison that was actually that Kaliya was emitting, what's happening is it was so terrifying poison that the vapor that was coming out from the poison was drying off all the trees which were surrounding that area, including when the vapor of poison was going up, the birds which were flying over that were actually getting burnt and falling down due to poison. So that entire area, all the trees had dried up, and all the birds had actually, a lot of birds which are flying over that area had died. So when Krishna comes to know about this, then of course it says Karunyardam, your heart which is filled with compassion. You are now getting filled with compassion for all these innocent birds and trees which are actually getting destroyed. So you then have to come out with a plan of how to stop Kaliya from doing this.
Rajesh, one question, Rajesh. What is the Kaliya is a Sarpa, yeah, and Ananda is a Naga. What is the difference in Naga and Sarpa?
See, Nagas are considered, the word Nagas are originally considered to be the clan of people slash serpents, right? However you want to push it, right? So it's kind of more like humans. Think of it that way. Nagas are like humans, a category of a group, right? So all the snakes are all Sarpa. Sarpa means a snake, right? And within snakes, you know, they have a lot of categories, and the entire clan of snakes are called as Nagas. That's all it is. So it's just like saying humans, right?
Thank you.
Yes. So Ghore Tasmin Suraja Nira Vase, comma, Tire Vriksha. Vriksha means trees, Tire means on the banks. Tire Vriksha, Vikshataha. Again, the Visarga has to be said there because Kshvela Vegat is coming next. Kshvela Vegat. Pakshivrataha, so put a if to join. Pakshivrataha, Petu Rabhre Patantaha, comma, Karunyardram Twan Manastena Jatam. Ghore Tasmin Surajani Ravase Tire Vriksha Vikshataha Kshvela Vegat Pakshivrataha Petu Rabhre Patantaha Karunyardram Twanmanastena Jatam.
घोरे तस्मिन् सूरजा नीरवासे तीरे वृक्षा विक्षिताः क्ष्वेलवेगात् पक्षिव्राताः पेतुरभ्रे पतन्तः कारुण्यार्द्रं तन्मनस्ते न जातम् घोरे तस्मिन् सूरजा नीरवासे तीरे वृक्षा विक्षिताः क्ष्वेलवेगात् विक्षताः तीरे वृक्षा विक्षताः क्ष्वेलवेगात् पक्षिव्राताः पेतुरभ्रे पतन्तः कारुण्यार्द्रं तन्मनस्ते न जातम्.
Last one also is Twan, okay? Because it's not exactly clear from the way you're saying. Karunyardram Twan Manas. Twa.
Twan.
Kore tasmin suraja niravaste tire vriksha vikshataha shelavegat pakshivratah pedurabhre padandaha karunyadram tvanmanaste najadam घोरे तस्मिन् सूरजा नीरवासे तीरे वृक्षा विक्षताः क्षेलवेगात् पक्षिव्राताः पेदुरभ्रे पदन्तः कारुण्यार्द्रं तन्मनस्ते न जातम्.
Rajesh, and the second line திருப்பி ஒரு தீரே விக்ஷா விக்ஷதாஹான்னு சொல்லணுமா? தாஹா.
Yeah, taha.
தாஹா ஆனா சொல்லணும் இல்லையா? தாஹா.
Taha illa. There's no ich at the end. Taha. Taha.
Thank you.
Stanza 5. Kale tasmin ekadhasirapanim muktva yate yamunam kananantam Tvayuddhama grishma bhishmoshma tapta gogopala vyapiban kshvelatoyam. So one day, Kale Tasmin, one day then, when Kali has been there for some days, right? And this all is happening. So one fine day when, like it happened in the previous 51 or something, right? When they decide to go to the forest, right? You decide to go to the forest with the boys, the gopas and the goats and the cows. And you leave back Sira Panim. Sira Panim means Sira is referring to the the what do you call that, for plowing, right? Whatever you use. So that word, and panim means the one who has it. So sira panim means the one who actually carries that thing which is used for plowing, which is Balarama. So you leave back sira panim, you leave back Balarama that day, right? And like we discussed last time in the 51st or 52nd chapter, right? Because Krishna is going to be now going and dancing on Kaliya, right? He's going to be trampling his foot on it. So he did not want Balarama to come there. Balarama eventually comes later, but he does not want all this to Balarama to see this. So anyway, so he leaves back Balarama that day. And then because of intense heat, as they were actually out there grazing the cows and everything, all these boys and cows get thirsty and they end up going to that area to drink the water, which was completely poisoned, right? Shwela toyam. Toyam is water. Shwela, like we said, is poison. So they end up drinking that poisoned water, all the boys and the cows as well. So Kale Tasmin Ekada, you can break it that way. Tasmin Ekada Sira Panim, and then put a plus Muktwa. So Sira Panim Muktwa, you didn't take him along. So Sira Panim Muktwa Yate Yamunam Kananantam.
Rajesh, like in my book, right? Tasmin Neka. Like renduna varudha ne
adu just fix that. I think that's a mistake in the book. Okay, in some books it had double na coming up there. Okay, so it's just tasmin ekadana. Okay, so it should be a ne, one ne.
Okay,
if
perfect.
we say together, it does it come tasmin ekada?
Yeah, maybe they put it one the na tasmin ekada. I don't know. It's tasmin ekada is the thing, because
in my book it's after the me it's double na negada.
Whereas also Rajesh.
Yeah, I think it must be because of, I think it's tasmin ekada is becoming double na. Okay, that's what is happening there. Okay, so tasmin ekada, you can say it that way, that's fine then. Tasmin ekada sira panim muktva yate yamunam kananantam tvai yuddhama. So you can double the coming there. Tvayuddhama Grishma Bhishmoshma Tapta. Now some books had Taptaha, but we had removed that Visarga in other places because it was not consistent. So Tapta, comma, Go Gopala Vyapiban Kshvela Toyam. Kale Tasmin Nekada. And even there, when you say Tasmin Nekada, if you say it together, it wouldn't, you necessarily will not hear the two nas. So Kale Tasmin Nekada Sirapanim Muktva Yate Yamunam Kananantam Tvayuddhama Grishma Bhishmoshma Tapta Gogopala Vyapiban Kshvelatoyam.
काले तस्मिन्नेकदा सीरपाणिं मुक्त्वा याते यामुनं काननान्तं त्वय्युद्धामग्रीष्मभीष्मोष्मतप्ता गोगोपाला व्यापिबन् क्ष्वेलतोऽयम् काले तस्मिन्नेकदा सीरपाणिं मुक्त्वा याते यामुनं काननान्तं त्वय्युद्धामग्रीष्मभीष्मोष्मतप्ता गोगोपाला व्यापिबन् क्ष्वेलतोऽयम्
काले तस्मिन्नेकदा सीरपाणिं मुक्ता याते यामुनं काननान्दं तयुद्धामग्रीष्मभीष्मोष्मतप्ता गोगोपाला व्यापिबन् क्ष्वेलतोऽयम्.
Anandji, in the third and fourth line, there's no plus. Okay, there's a comma after tapta. And the first letter of the third line is Tvayuddham. I think you said Tai. Tvayuddham. Twa.
काले तस्मिन्नेकदा सीरपाणिं मुक्त्वा याते यामुनं काननान्दं त्वय्युद्धामग्रीष्मभीष्मोष्मतप्ता गोगोपाला व्यापिबन् क्ष्वेलतोऽयम्.
Stanza 6. Nashya Jivan Bichutan Kshmataletan Vishwan Pashyan Achyutatvam Dayadraha Prapyopantam Jivayamasi Tadrak Piyushambho Varshibeshri Katakshay. So, because the folks with the boys as well as the cows, the go and the Gogopala, had drunk the poisoned water, so they all end up fainting, they all end up falling down and they faint on it. So you then achyutam, see, chuta means somebody who slips away, like you're slipping off your hand, right? Something slips off your hand, it's called chuta. So achyuta means something which doesn't slip. So that's why here Bhattacharya is specifically saying you are achyutam because you do not let go, right, of your devotees. So you did not let them pass off your hand. So then you being an achyuta, what you do, you're filled with compassion, and then you go and then you are able to recover them. You are able to bring them back. Of course, they are not completely dead. They are just fainted. And then he says you are able to bring them back with Sri Katakshahi. So here this could be interpreted in two ways. One is you can say Kataksha means eyes, right? So Sri Katakshahi you could say is very auspicious. Shri could be auspicious eye, glance, you can say. The other meaning of Shri is also Lakshmi Devi, is also called Shri, right? So Lakshmi Devi resides in the Lord himself. So being the mother of all the human beings, Lakshmi Devi's eyes, Lakshmi Devi looking at them, or the goddess looking at them, was able to, all the boys and the cows or the calves were able to recover, and then they recovered from having fainted. So Nashya Jivan Vichyutan Kshmataletan. So that's a half ksha, not a full ksha. So Kshmataletan. So you kind of share the ksha and ma together. Kshmataletan, comma. Vishwan Pashyan Nachyuta. So again, double na coming. It's Pashyan and Achyuta, but double na. Pashyan Nachyuta Tvam Dayardraha Prapyo Pantam Jivayam Asita. You can break at that ma if you want. Jivayam Asita Drak, comma. Piyushambho Varshibihi. Is there put a ish sound? Varshibish Shri Katakshahi. Nashya Jivan Vichyutan Kshmataletan विश्वान् पश्यन्नच्युतत्वं दयार्द्रः प्राप्योपान्तं जीवयामासि तद्राक् पीयूषाम्भो वर्षिभिः श्रीकटाक्षैः
नश्यै जीवान् विच्युतान् क्ष्मातलेतान् विश्वान् पश्यन्नच्युतत्वं दयार्द्रः प्राप्योपान्तं जीवयामासि तद्राक् पीयूषाम्भो वर्षिभिः श्रीकटाक्षैः नश्यै जीवान्
नश्यज् जीवान्
नश्यज्जीवान् विच्युतान् क्ष्मातलेतान् विश्वान् पश्यन्नच्युतत्वं दयार्द्रः प्राप्योपान्तं जीवयामासि तद्राक् पीयूषाम्भो वर्षिभिः श्रीकटाक्षैः
नश्यज्जीवान् विच्युतान् श्मातलेतान् विश्वान् पश्यन्नच्युतत्वं दयार्द्रः प्राप्योपान्तं जीवयामासि दद्राक् पीयूषाम्भो वर्षभिः श्रीकटाक्षैः
वर्षिभिः yeah
वर्षिभिः
yeah correct
नश्यज्जीवान् विच्युतान् श्मातलेतान् विश्वान् पश्यन्नच्युतत्वं दयार्द्रः प्राप्योपान्तं जीवयामासि दद्राक् पीयूषाम्भो वर्षिभिः श्रीकटाक्षैः
Stanza 7 किं किं जातो हर्षवर्षातिरेकः सर्वाङ्गेष्वित्युत्थिता गोपसङ्घाः दृष्ट्वाग्रे त्वां त्वत्कृतं तद्विदन्तः त्वामालिङ्गन् दृष्टनाना प्रभावाः. So when the Gopa boys, right, when they all recover, when they all come back up, so they all suddenly are feeling it's all newfound energy, right, or bliss inside their body, and they all realize that, we all remember fainting down having drunk this water, but now how come we are all suddenly up and being extremely happy? But then they all see Krishna in front, and because the Gopa boys have seen all the other activities and leelas of Krishna, so they know it was Krishna who actually helped them, so they all get very happy, and then Twam Alingan, they all came and hugged you because they know you are the one who's eventually saved them again, this time as well. So Kim Jato Harsha Varshati Rekaha, comma. So next word, Sarvangeshvit Yuttita. So you can't easily break it. So Sarvangeshvit Yuttita Gopa Sanghaha. Drishtwagre Twam Twat Kritam Tat Vidhantaha. Put a visarga at the end of that line. Vidhantaha and then a comma. Next line, that is, if you have it, that goes away. Twam Alingan. You can break it that ma if you want. Twam Alingan Drishta Nana Prabhavaha. Kim Jato Harsha Varshati Rekaha Sarvangeshvit Yuttita Gopa Sanghaha Drishtwagre Twam Tvatkritam Tad Vidantaha Twama Lingan Drishtanana Prabhavaha.
Kim jato harshavarshatirekah sarvangeshvityuttita gopasangaha drushtvagre tvam tvatkritam tadvitantaha twamalingan drushtanana prabhavaha. Kim jato harshavarshatirekah sarvangeshvityuttita Vityuttita Gopasangaha Drishtwagre Tvam Tvatkritam Tadvidantaha Twamalingan Drushtanana Prabhavaha.
Kim Jado Harshavarshatirekah Sarvangeshvityuttita Gopasangaha Drishtagre Tvam Tatkritam Tadvidantaha Twama Lingan Drishtanana Prabhavaha. किं जादो हर्षवर्षातिरेकः सर्वाङ्गेषित्युत्थिता गोपसङ्गाः दृष्टाग्रे त्वां त्वत्कृतं तद् विदन्तः त्वामालिङ्गन् दृष्टनाना प्रभावाः.
Ananji, third line, first word, dristvagre, dristvagre, va. The third line, first word.
Okay.
Dristvagre. I think the va, I couldn't hear it clearly. That's why. Dristvagre. Yeah.
Mine somehow va was missing in my book.
Yeah. Drishtva is to see. So dristvagre means having seen you in front. So dristvagre.
Okay.
Okay. Stanza 8. Gavaschaivam labda jivaha kshanena sphita nandastvam cha drishtva purastat dragavavrus sarvato harshabashpam vyamunchantyo mandamudhyan ninadaha. So the previous stanza, all the Gopa boys had recovered and then they got extremely happy and then they came and embraced you. In this one, all the Gavaha, all the cows or the calves were also there. So you also brought them back to normalcy and even they were extremely happy. But how will cows or calves express their affection, right? So they all surrounded Krishna and then they were Harsha Bhashpam. They were actually shedding tears of joy because they are thankful to the Lord for having saved them because they also realized what had happened. And then they were also telling thanks the way is by moving, right? So the very slow moving MOO moving noise, right? So they thanked Krishna and they were making that noise around him and they were all surrounding Krishna. So, Gavash Chaivam Labda Jivaha. Again, Visarga say that because Ksha is coming next. So Jivaha Kshanena, comma, Spita Nandas Twam cha Drishtva Purastat. Again, same Drishtva that came previously. Drishtva Purastat. Draga Vabruhu. Is there put a is Vabrus Sarvato Harsha Bashpam and then put a plus. Vyamunchantyo. Vyamunchantyo Mandam. If you want to break it, Mandam Udhyan Ninadaha. Gavaschaivam labda jivaha kshanena sphita nandastvam cha drishtva purastat dragavavrus sarvato harshabashpam vyamunchantyo mandamudhyan ninadaha.
Gavaschaivam labda jivaha kshanena spītānandāstvam ca društva purastat draga vavrus sarvato harshabasham vyamunchantyo mandamudhya ninadaha. Gavaschaivam labdha jivaha kshanena spītānandāstvam ca društva purastat
Twam cha drishtva.
Spītānandāstvam ca društva purastat draga vavrus sarvato harshabasham vyamunchantyo mandamudhya ninadaha.
Third line, last word, Harsha Bashpam. Pa.
Bashpam. Harsha Bashpam. Okay.
Okay, and then the first line, right? I think after Jivaha, you pause, but then you don't have to take a long pause. So I think if you take a long pause, then you're not able to complete that line with the tune. Okay.
Okay. Okay. Thanks.
Rajesh. Second line la Twanchava, Twamchava, im ketena.
Im. Yeah, im da, Twam.
Im. Okay.
Yeah,
you. Im irukku.
Oh, im da, M. Twam.
நான் மிஸ் பண்ணிட்டேன். Third and fourth சேர்த்து சொல்லணுமா? Plus.
Third and fourth is a plus. Say that together.
Thank you.
Gavaschaivam labda jivaha kshanena spītānandāstvam ca drishtva purastat dragavavrus sarvato harshabashpam vyamunchantyo mandamudhyan ninadaha.
So last word, mandam udhyan ninadaha.
Mandamudhyan ninadaha.
Yeah.
Thank you. Gavaschaivam labda jivaha kshanena स्पीदानन्दास्त्वां च दृष्ट्वा पुरस्ताद् द्रागाववृक् सर्वतो हर्षबाष्पं व्यामुञ्जन्त्यो मन्दमुन्द्यन्निनादाः.
Again, the last line, right? Anand, I think mandam udyan. I think that udya, I think you are saying something slightly different at that last word.
Manda mundyan.
No, mandam udyan.
Oh, udyan. Okay, mandam udyan.
Udyan ninadaha.
Vyamunjandyo mandam udyan ninadaha.
Correct, exactly. Okay.
Thank you, Rajesh.
Stanza 9. रोमाञ्चोऽयं सर्वतो नः शरीरे भूयस्यन्तः काचिदानन्दमूर्च्छा आश्चर्योऽयं क्ष्वेलवेगो मुकुन्देत्युक्तो गोपैर्नन्दितो वन्दितो भूः. So again, this is just continuing that Mukunda, like Mukunda means one who gives liberation. Mukti dharati iti Mukunda. So saying one who gives liberation, oh Mukunda, Romanchoyam, we are all, the boys are telling, we are all suddenly feeling this sense of bliss in our bodies, right? So it's like, we are feeling very excited, we're in an excited state. And all of this probably is because we probably consume that poison. So the poison has some level of intoxication or alcohol or something, looks like. So when we consumed it, we are all now feeling extremely happy and we have a very high level of energies. So in that, that all the Gopas were telling Krishna, and then it's just having fun, right? And then, they all thanked you as well and praised you as well for saving them and helping them out. Romanchoyam sarvato naha is there, put a ish, nash, sharire, comma. Bhuyas yantaha is there, put a ich sound. Bhuyas yantah. Kachid Ananda Murcha. If you want to break it, you can break it like that. Kachid Ananda Murcha. Ascharyoyam Kshvela Vego Mukunde, put a plus. Mukunde Tyukto Gopair Nandito Vandito Bhuhu. So third and fourth line are together.
Rajesh, in my book, right, it say Mukundeti. Adu deti eduthanama Mukunda eduthikanama.
Okay. So Mukundeti Ukto.
Right?
Yeah. So the T plus U is, that's what I say. It becomes the Mukunda iti ukto, right? 3 words. That becomes Mukundetyukto. Because we're saying it together, you can't say it as T and ukto and all that. It gets combined. Okay. So it is Mukundetyukto.
Mukundetyukton sollanum.
Correct. Yeah, because we're saying it together, but the 3 words are Mukunda iti ukto, or those are the 3 words. Just Sandhi rule, nothing else. Romanchoyam sarvato nasharire bhuyasyantah kachidananda murcha ascharyoyam kshvela vego mukundetyukto gopair nandito vandito bhuhu.
रोमाञ्चोऽयं सर्वतो नः शरीरे भूयस्यन्तः काचिदानन्दमूर्छा आश्चर्योऽयं क्ष्वेलवेगो मुकुन्दे त्युक्तो गोपैर्नन्दितो वन्दितो भूः रोमाञ्चोऽयं सर्वतो नः शरीरे भूयस्यन्तः काचिदानन्दमूर्छा आश्चर्योऽयं क्ष्वेलवेगो मुकुन्दे त्युक्तो गोपैर्नन्दितो वन्दितो भूः
Vyomanjoyam sarvato na sharire bhuyasyantah kachitanandamurcha ascharyoyam shelavego mukunde tyukto gopairnandito vandito bhuhu.
Vandito bhuhu.
Vandito bhuhu. Romanjoyam sarvato na sharire bhuyasyantah kachitanandamurcha ascharyoyam shelavego mukunde tyukto gopairnandito vandito bhuhu.
Stanza 10. Evam bhaktan mukta jivanapetvam Mugdha pangairastharogam stanoshi tadrugbhuta sphita karunya bhuma roghat paya vayugeha dinatha. So he's saying, Evam, in this way, right, your devotees who were the Gopa boys and the cows who had almost lost their lives, right? They didn't die, but they're almost Mukta Jiva, they had almost lost their life. You brought them back, you revived them back. At the same time, Astarogam, you also made sure that the poison did not have any effect on their bodies. They did not get any after effects, they did not get any disease or anything. So you are with all because of your glances, just by because Sri Katakshahi, you looked at them and then you were able to recover. And he's saying, all I am asking is Roghat Paya, just eradicate the one disease I'm having. You are a person of Karunya Bhuma, you are filled with compassion, and you're doing all this for all your devotees. Similarly, please eradicate my disease also that I'm having. Oh Lord of Guru Ayur. Evam Bhaktan Mukta Jivanapi Tvam, comma, Mugdha Pangair. If you want to break it, you can break it at the tra. Mugdha Pangair Astarogams Tanoshi. Or you can say it together. Mugdha Pangair Astarogams Tanoshi. Tadrig Bhuta Spita Karunya Bhuma, comma, Rogat Paya Vayu Gehadhi. The last letter word there, some books have Vasa, some books have Natha. Vasa means one who resides, Natha means Lord. So it doesn't matter what you say, but we changed it to Natha to be consistent. So Vayu Gehadi Natha. Evam bhaktan mukta jivana pitvam mugdha pangairastarogam stanoshi tadruk bhuta sphita karunya bhuma roghat paya vayugeha dhinatha.
Evam bhaktan mukta jivana pitvam mugdha pangairastarokam stanoshi tadruh bhutaspita karunya bhuma rogat paya vayu gehadinata gehadinata.
Natha is the second tha and just the ta,
Natha.
not tha.
Okay, Natha. Evam bhaktan mukta jivana pitvam mugdha pangairastarokam stanoshi tadruh bhutaspita karunya bhuma rogat paya vayugehadhinata. Sri Krishnaya Parabrahmane Namaha.
Evam bhaktan mukta jivana pitvam mugdha pangairastarogam stanoshi tadrik bhudaspida karunya bhuma rogat paya vayugehadinadha. Evam bhaktan mukta jivana pitvam mugdha pangairastarogam stanoshi tadrik bhudaspida karunya bhuma rogat paya vayugehadinadha.
Yeah, the last line, na, tha, just make sure it's not a da sound is not coming, tha sound is coming. Okay. And the last letter.
Natha.
Natha. Yeah. Sri Krishnaya Parabrahmane Namaha. So that completes 54. So we'll go on to 55. So Narayani and Aarti can continue. So this chapter is based on the meter is Totaka. So those who know the Totaka Ashtakam that was done, that's the tune of this chapter, right? And again, this is where the Lord is dancing on Kaliya as well. So you kind of have to imagine that, and it is framed in that way. So first stanza. Athavari nighorataram phaninam prativarayitum kritadhir bhagavan drutam haritatiiraganipatarum vishamaruta shoshita parnachayam. So you then decide, because of all the atrocities that Kaliya had done and all the impact we saw, right, for all the trees and the birds and everything, that this Ghorataram Phaninam. Phani means hood, right? And so Phaninam, so Ghorataram means the one who's actually got a Phaninam is a serpent. Ghorataram means a fierce serpent. fierce snake. So to get rid of him, what you do is you decide to now jump into the waters yourself to go fight, right? And the way you do this is on the banks of the river, there was one tree where the tree was arching into, like if you go to Kerala, Anandji and others are there, when you go along the backwaters, you'll see that all the coconut trees there are curving over into the water, right? Leaning into the water. So similarly, there is one tree there in the branch, which are also dried up because of the poison, but that tree was leaning over into the water. So you then climb up on that on the tree, getting ready to jump into the water. So this in this chapter, we will all the stanzas, the first two lines we'll say together, the second two lines we'll say together. Okay, that way we can sing it in the tune. So you can automatically put a plus on the first two and the second two. Atha varini ghora taram paninam plus prati varayitum kritadhir bhagavan drutam aritha tiraga Nipa tarum, put a plus, Visha maruta shoshita parna chayam. Athavari nighora taram paninam prativarayitum kritadhir bhagavan dhrutamharita tiraga nipa tarum Visha maruta shoshita parna chayam.
Attavarini ghorataram paninam prativarayitum kritadir bhagavan drutamarita tira ganipatarum vishamaruta shoshita parnachayam. Attavarini ghorataram paninam prativarayitum kritadir bhagavan Drutamarita tira ganipatarum vishamaruta shoshita parnachayum.
Parnachayam.
Chayam. Parnachayam.
Atavarini ghorataram paninam prativarayitum kritadhir bhagavan drutamarita dhira ganipatarum vishamaruta shoshita parnachayam.
Arti, on the third line, Tiraga, ta, first ta, Tiraga.
Okay. Atavarini ghorataram paninam prativarayitum kritadhir bhagavan drutamarita tira ganipatarum vishamaruta shoshita parnachayam.
Stanza 2. Adhiruhya padamburuhena chatam navapallavatullya manognya rucha hradavari nidurataram nyapatah parighurnita ghorataranga gane. So when you now climb into this tree, the tree which was completely devoid of leaves because it had dried up, because your tender foot was stepping up on the branches of the leaves of the trees, it's appeared as if the tree now suddenly was growing all those tender leaves. So, but being a poet, Bhattaripada is saying that your feet is touching that tree. So now it all of a sudden appeared as if the leaves were beginning to sprout on the tree, even though the tree had completely withered off. And then once you do that, you then jump deep into the water. And when you jump deep into the water, you're then creating waves because of you jumping. And we'll cover that more in the next stanza as well. But essentially, the Lord is jumping into the water now to take on Kalya. Adi ruhya padambu ruhena cha tam plus nava pallava tulya manognya rucha hrada. So this is a hra, right? Hrada varini durataram nyapataha is there. So put a if and then put a plus. Nyapatah parighurnita ghora taranga gane. Adhiruhya padambu ruhena chatam navapallavatulya manognya rucha hradavari nidurataram nyapatah parighurnita ghora taranga gane.
Rajesh, all the second and the first வரும்போது we put a comma, Second வரும்போது we add a plus sign.
எல்லாத்துலயுமே we're putting a plus. It's just that I might be running out of breath when I'm singing it. So by default, first two lines you put a plus, second two lines you put a plus for the entire chapter.
Okay.
Adiruhya padamburuhena chatam navapallavatulla manunya rucha Radavarini durataram nyapataf parigurnita ghora tarangagane Adiruhya padamburuhena chatam navapallavatulya manunya rucha Radavarini durataram nyapataf parigurnita ghora tarangagane
Adiruhya padamburuhena chatam navapallavatulla tulya manognarucha Hradavarini durataram nyapataf parigurnita ghora tarangagane Adiruhya padamburuhena chatam navapallavatulya manognarucha Hradavarini durataram nyapataf parigurnita ghora tarangagane.
Stanza 3. Bhuvanatraya bhara bhrito bhavato guru bhara vikampi vijrumbhijala parimajjayate sma dhanushshatakam tatini jhatiti sphuta ghoshavati. So even before the Greek philosopher Archimedes had invented the principle that when you jump into the water equal volume splashes out. Bhagavatam, they said, you who is Bhuvanatraya, you who is carrying the weight of all the three worlds, when you are jumping into the water, the entire water of the Kalindi should have splashed out, right? And that's really what they say. When you are carrying so much weight, the entire water should have splashed out. But then you didn't want that to happen, right? You didn't want that to happen. So you were just a child. So you just splashed. But even then, when you jumped into the water, about like how we have, like a foot, a measurement like a foot, or we have like a stone's throw as a measurement of the distance. Then they used to have something called as the length of a bow. So he says, when you jumped into the water, Dhanush Shatakam, about 100 bow in length, water splashed out and it covered the surrounding areas. So because you didn't want the entire thing to dry off, so you just jump and then water splashes out because of your weight and everything. And then the river also makes Ghoshavati. The river is also making a loud noise because of you jumping into the water and the water splashing out. So Bhuvana, Traya, Bhara, Bhrito, Bhavato, and then put a plus. Guru, Bhara, Vikampi, Vijrimbi, Jala, Parimajjayati, Sma, Dhanush, Shatakam, and then put a plus. Tatini, Jhatiti, Sputa, Ghoshavati. Bhuvanatraya bhara bhrito bhavato guru bhara vikampi vijrumbhijala parimajjayate sma dhanushshatakam tatini jhatiti sphuta ghoshavati.
Bhuvanatraya bhara bhruto bhavato guru bhara vikampi vijrumbhijala parimajjayate sma dhanushshatakam tatini jatiti sputa ghoshavati. Correct சொன்னேனா last line. Bhuvanatraya bhara bhruto bhavato guru bhara vikampi vijrumbhijala parimajjayate sma dhanushshatakam tatini jatiti sputa ghoshavati.
Bhuvanatraya bhara bhrito bhavato guru bhara vikampi vijrumbhijala parimajjayati sma dhanushshatakam
Yeah.
Dhanushshatakam tatini jatiti sputa ghoshavati.
And the Aarti and even Narayani, I think in that last line, Jhatiti Sputa Goshavati. There's no is in between. It's sounding like you're saying an is in between, but there's no is in between. Jhatiti Sputa Goshavati.
Jatiti Sputa
Yeah.
Goshavati.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. भुवनत्रयभारभृतो भवतो गुरुभारविकम्पि विजृम्भिजला परिमज्जयति स्म धनुष्शतकं तटिनी जटिति स्फुटघोषवती.
Stanza 4. Atha dikshu vedikshu parikshu bita bhramitodarvari ninada bhareihi udakat udagad uragadipatis swadupanta mashanta rushandhamanaha. So now when he's jumping into the water, because the water is spreading all over, it's spreading in all directions, right? So all the 8 directions, the water is now splashing. And it's creating those waves, right, as when he's jumped in between. And also it created a loud noise, as we saw last time. So when Kalia is resting there with his family, he suddenly is getting disturbed because he's getting this vibration of the waves coming, and he's also hearing this loud noise. So suddenly he's wondering what is happening, and he's getting angry. The snake is getting angry, and he now starts coming out. So he's at the bottom of the pond or the water body that we talked about. He's now beginning to come out, wondering who is this and what is happening here. Ata dikshu vidikshu parikshubita plus bhramitodara vari ninada bharaihi udakad udagad. So the first is a ka, next is a ga. So udakad udagad uragadhi pati is there, put a plus. And then you can say the is of the next line. You can say it with this. Udagadi patis twadu pantam ashanta rushandha manaha. So just say that is with the third line, then you can put a plus together. Ata dikshu vedikshu parikshu beta bhramitodaravadi ninada bharaihi udakad udagaduragadhipatis twadupanta mashanta rushandhamana.
Ata dikshu vidikshu parikshu beta bhramito daravari ninada baraihi udakadu dagadu ragadi patis twadupanta mashanta shanta rushandamanaha. Okay. Ata dikshu vidikshu parikshu beta bhramito daravari ninada bharaihi udakadu dagadu ragadi patis twadupanta mashanta rushandamanaha.
Ata dikshu vidikshu parikshu bita bhramito daravari ninada bharaihi udakadu dagadu ragadi patis twadupanta mashanta rushanta manaha. Ata dikshu vidikshu parikshu bita bhramito daravari ninada bharaihi udakadu dagadu ragadi patis twadupanta mashanta rushanta manaha.
Stanza 5. Phana shringa sahasra vinisru mara jwaladagni kanogra vishambhudaram puratah phaninam samalokayata bahushringinam anjana shailamiva. So now Kalia is now coming out, wondering where the sound is coming. So when he comes out of wherever he is, out of the water, right, or he comes on the water next. So you, O Lord, are seeing in front of you something which looks like a large mountain, right? So he's now giving a comparison to say how he is. So he's looking like a Shailam. He's looking like a mountain, which is Anjana. Anjana means like a black. It's like Anjana actually refers to the mascara, the mai, right, that you put. So that means it's dark black in color. So because of all the poison, he's dark black in color and he's looking like a mountain size-wise. And just like how the mountain has peaks, he's having his pani, he's having his hoods, which are like the various peaks of the mountain. And then out of that are emitting it's a jwala. It's like fire is coming, but literally not fire, but the poison that is actually coming out of all of the mouths of the snake is as if it is like fire coming, right? And you all, like just recently, my sister-in-law, her family lives in Thrissur, and she sent a picture on the outside of their house, in her parents' house, one snake which is hood up, sitting on the road, right? And she sent a picture. It's so scary to look at it, right? Because the snake, you all have seen, right, with the hood, with the curved hood, it is sitting there, right? So we all have this fear of snakes, right? So anyway, here it's like, imagine that with several hundred or whatever, right? So large mountain with multiple peaks, because with the multiple hoods, and it is all looking, it's extremely black in color, and that's how Kalia is now coming out and wondering and looking out to see what is there, who is there. So Pana Shringa Sahasra Vinis Srimara. Vinis Srimara, put a plus. Jwaladagni Kanogra Vishambu Dharam. Purataha, put a if Puratah Paninam Samaloka Yatha, put a plus. Bahu Shringinam Anjana, if you want to break it, Shringinam Anjana Shailam Iva. Phana Shringa Sahasra Vinisrimara Jwaladagni Kanogra Vishambudharam Puratah Paninam Samalokayata Bahushringinam Anjana Shailam Iva.
Panashringa Sahasra Vinisrimara Jwaladagni Kanogra Vishambudaram Puratah Paninam Samalokayata Bahushringina Manjana Shailamiva. Panashringa Sahasra Vinisrimara Jwaladagni Kanogra Vishambudaram Puratah Paninam Samalokayata Bahushringina Manjana Shailamiva.
Panashringa Sahasra Vinishrumara Jwaladagni Kanodgra Vishambudaram Puratah Paninam Samalokayata Bahushringina Manchana Shailamiva. Panashringa Sahasra Vinishrumara Jwaladagni Kanodgra Vishambudaram Puratah Paninam Samalokayata Bahushringina Manjana Shailamiva.
Stanza 6. Jwaladakshi Pariksharadugra Vishashwasanoshma Bharasa Mahabhujagaha Paridashya Bhavantamananta Balam Samaveshta Yada Tuta Mahom. So this huge serpent, Mahabhujaga, Bhujaga means snake, Mahabhujaga means a huge serpent, right? It's Jwaladakshi, so it's ice, or also red in color, right? Because it's flaming because of the heat coming, and also it's also emitting, extreme poison which has got intense heat. And what it does is it then coils around you. It finds that you are the only one who's there in the waters. Nobody else is there, right? So it figures out that you are the one who's causing all this trouble, and then it comes and coils around you and making your movements impossible, right? That's what it is. But we also saw in the 46th stanza, 46th chapter, right? When Yashoda was trying to try, he said, Bandhumichati yameva sajjanastam bhavantamai bandhumichati. Means only who you want them to bind you can bind you, right? Similarly, here Kalia is he's trying to bind you and make your movements impossible. So we'll then see what happens.
How old is Krishna? In
6 years, because remember in the 52nd Dasakam, when the Brahma incident happened, they had just turned 6 at that time.
Okay.
So he's 6 years old right now.
Rajesh, a quick question. But who was like, or சில பேர் will be born as the evil person and then to get killed by God, right? So Kalia, what did he do to be born as like this in order to get killed by Krishna?
Yeah, so he doesn't get killed by Krishna, number one. Okay. He
Calling
doesn't
a Nardanam Modu, I thought, okay.
no,
Like,
he doesn't get killed. So the Bhagavan only is just keeping his foot and stamping, or I don't want to use the word stamping in a wrong sense. He's like pressing his, and it'll come later. But the short answer is he doesn't get killed. And later on, his wives will come and talk. So I'll tell about it at that time.
Okay.
Okay. But in that way, he doesn't get killed as such. Okay. So he doesn't get liberated completely. Okay. Like other Mukti Margam or anything.
Okay. Perfect.
So Jwala Dakshi Parikshara Dugra Bisha, and then put a plus. Then the next word is Shwasa no. So ish is coming, and then a va, shwa. So Shwasa no shmabharaha is there. Put a is to join it, to remove the visarga. So Swasha no shmabharas sa maha bhujagaha paridashya bhavantam ananta bhalam. If you want to spread it, break it. Ananta, you have infinite strength. Ananta bhalam, put a plus. Samaveshtayada sputa cheshta maho.
இதுல சா வேற வருது இல்லையா? மபரசாதனே.
ஆமா, அந்த விசர்காக்கு பதிலா you put is. So swashanoshmabharas sa mahabhujagaha. Okay.
Is the fourth line
Rajesh,
is pariveshtayati, or you said something different?
Fourth, samaveshtayada.
No, we have a pariveshtayada.
Okay, so just can you change it to samaveshtayada?
Okay.
Samaveshtayada. Okay. Swami.
My question was the same. Enakku pari irukku, so adnala
yeah, I think it's yeah, it must be. So pari, it's like at the end of the day, it means around. That's what it means. Samaveshtayada, pariveshtayada means you're coiling around. So he coils around Krishna. That's what it is. Jwaladakshi parikshara dugra vishas vashanoshma bharasta mahabhujagaha paridashya bhavanta mananta balam samaveshtayada sputa cheshta maho.
ஒரே நிமிஷம். வேஷ்டயதஸ் நீங்க எப்படி சொல்றீங்க? அது மட்டும் திருப்பி ஒரே ஒரு வாட்டி.
It's veshtayat asputa. So veshtayada sputa, it's together. When you don't try to separate the words there. But on the landing pariveshtayada sputa.
Okay.
Okay.
ज्वलदक्षि परिक्षरदुग्रविश श्वसनोष्म भरस्स महाभुजगः परिदश्य भवन्तमनन्तबलं समवेष्टयदस्फुट चेष्टमहो ज्वलदक्षि परिक्षरदुग्रविश श्वसनोष्म भरस्स महाभुजगः परिदश्य भवन्तमनन्तबलं समवेष्टयदस्फुट चेष्टमहो
ज्वलदक्षि परिक्षरदुग्रविश श्वसनोष्म भरस्स महाभुजगः परिदश्य भवन्तमनन्तबलं समवेष्टयदस्फुट चेष्टमहो ज्वलदक्षि परिक्षरदुग्रविश श्वसनोष्म भरस्स महाभुजगः परिदश्य भवन्तमनन्तबलं समवेष्टयदस्फुट चेष्टमहो.
Rajesh, quick question. Sorry. Samaveshtayadasputa cheshtamaho.
Like I said, the right words are samaveshtayat asputa. Okay, those are the two words. Okay. So that's why I'm saying you can't break it exactly there. So you just say that whole thing together and then don't create a break there. So samaveshtayadasputa. Just say it together, ideally.
Okay.
Okay, so but you can't break it because it's samaveshtayat asputa. It's two different words. Those are the two different words. You can't explicitly separate it at one point.
Okay, okay.
Okay. Adukapra sputa kapra cheshtam aho. That you can break it. Stanza 7. Avilokya bhavanta mata kulite tatagamini balaka dhenu gane brajageha talepya nimitta shatam samudikshya gataya munam pashupaha. So now when the snake has coiled around Krishna, so of course all the boys and all the cows and the calves, everybody is rushing towards that place, right? Because they're seeing this happening. And even though they have seen you fight all the things in the past and recover from it, right? According to them, they still look at you as a boy. So they are still worried that Kalia is now circled around you and they don't know what's going to happen. And so they're all being extremely worried as well. At the same time, the Gopas and everybody at home then also start seeing some bad omens. It doesn't say what it is, or maybe somebody must have probably run quickly and told that Krishna has fallen into the water and Kali has got hold or something. But all the Nandas and everybody and the Gopas are suddenly seeing some bad things happening, and then they also realize that even Balarama has not gone with Krishna that day. So they all are extremely afraid that he's fallen into this water where Kalia is there, and all the Gopas and the Gopikas and everybody start rushing towards Yamuna. Pashupaha, all of them, they start coming towards the Yamuna river, towards Kalindi river to see what's happening. So, Avilokya Bhavantam Atha Kulite, put a plus, Tata Gamini Balaka Dhenu Ghane, Braja Geha Talepya Nimitta, double ta, Nimitta Shatam, and then put a plus, Samudikshya Gata Yamunam Pashupaha. Avilokya bhavanta mata kulite tatagami nibalaka dhenu gane brajageha talepya nimitta shatam samudiksha gata yamunam pashupaha.
Avilokya bhavanta mata kulite tatagami nibalaka dhenu gane brajage hatalepya nimitta shatam samudikshya gata yamunam pashupaha. Avilokya bhavanta mata kulite tatagami nibalaka dhenu gane brajage hatalepya nimitta shatam samudikshya gata yamunam pashupaha.
Avilokya bhavanta mata kulite tatakami nibalakadenu gani brajageha talepya nimitta shatam samudikshya gata yamunam pashupaha. Avilokya bhavanta mata kulite tatakami nibalakadenu gani.
Sorry, one correction. Second line, tata gamini, ga, not ka.
Okay.
Gamini, okay.
Avilokya bhavanta mata kulite tatagami nibalakadenu gani brajageha talepya nimitta shatam samudikshya gata yamunam pashupaha.
Stanza 8. Akhileshu vibho bhavadiya dasham avalokya jihasushu jiva bharam Phanibandanamashu vimuchya javadudagamyata asajusha bhavata. So now all the Gopikas, everybody has come there now, and they're all seeing that Kalia has circled around Krishna. And like we said earlier, right, in their mind, he's still a small child, right, like a 6-year-old boy. And they're all extremely worried that everybody, and Yashoda is also getting really worried. And she feels like she has to now jump into the water to save Krishna. And so all the women folks are holding her back, saying that, you know what, if you also go, you're also going to get caught. So they're all kind of in a mix, right? Should we jump into the water to save, or what do we do at this point? Because they know even if they jump, they won't be able to rescue. And even same thing with Nanda Gopa also. He's also trying to see how can I get into the water. And So the Lord is letting it go for a while. So Kalia is circling him and all this is happening. And at a point, he realizes that the Gopas and the Gopikas have reached a point where they are willing to give their own lives to save him. So when he found out that they've reached that level of affection towards him, that they're willing to give their own lives and they were about to jump into the water, you then quickly escape from the coils of the snake, right? So at that point, you escape out of the coils of the snake. And when you escape the coils of the snake, at that time, Kalia is wondering what is happening, and then he's raising his hood and looking at you. So then you hold the tip of his tail or of him, and then jump onto the top of his head. So that's what is happening. So that actually jumping is happening in the next stanza, but at the time you quickly slip out of Kalia's coils and you free yourself. Akhileshu vibho bhavadiya dasham. So the Mavalokya, which you have coming in the next line, put a im at the end of the first line, im first dasham, and then put a plus, and the next line becomes avalokya. Okay, just to kind of say it that way. So avalokya jihasushu jiva bharam pani bandha namashu vimuchya javat. Put a it at the end of this line, javat, and then put a plus, and then put a udagamyata. So that way you're breaking it properly. Next line, du becomes u. Udagamyata hasa jusha bhavata. Akhileshu vibho bhavadiya dasha avalokya jihasushu jiva bharam Phanibandhanamashu vimuchya javat udagamyata hasa jusha bhavata.
Akileshu vibho bhavadiya dasham avalokya jihasushu jiva bharam Phanibandhanamashu vimuchya javat udagamyata hasa jusha bhavata.
Narayani, just one time is okay. I think I'm trying to see if you can somehow finish the chapter today's class.
Okay.
Okay.
Akileshu vibho bhavadiya dasham avalokya jiha sushujiva baram panibandhanamashu vimuchya javadudagamyataha sajusha bhavata.
That's a 9. Adiruhya tataf phani raja phanan nanrute bhavata mrudupada rucha Kalashinjita nupura manju milat karakankana sankula sankwanitam. So you then are now getting on to the top of Kalia's hood, and you then perform this dance of yours, right? So you still have the flute in your hand, and then you're playing the flute, and then your tender feet is then jumping on each of Kalia's hoods. So anytime one of Kalia's hood used to rise up, you used to put your feet on top of that. Right? Essentially, it is to remove his pride and to remove his ego. That was the intention there, not necessarily to kill him, right, or destroy him. So every time when you're doing, you are then jumping from one hood to another hood with your tender feet every time that hood was rising up. And by doing this, you did this over several times that eventually the serpent gave up, that it could not raise its hood anymore and it had calmed down. So, and everybody observed. So with this, you did your dance, Nanrute Bhavata, you did your dance that was actually done with Kala Shinjita Nupura, the anklets that you were wearing, the kulusu that you were wearing, were also making the sound, and then you were also playing your flute, and with that you are also dancing as well. So you are dancing coordinated with your music that was coming up, and eventually and then that's all it says here. And then eventually what happens in the next Dasakam is Kalia's wives then come and his family comes. They apologize, saying that we have committed a lot of sins in our previous birth. However, we have done a lot of punyam that the Lord's feet is touching on Kalia's head, right? So these people fight to get into contact with the Lord, but his own feet has touched Kalia's head. So we have really got liberated. And then they actually move away from Yamuna as well. And they kind of, so his the poisonous effects also start going down. So Adi Ruhya Tataha is there put a if Tataf Pani Raja Panan plus Nanrute Bhavata Mridu Pada Rucha Kalashinjita Nupura Manju Milat. put a it, I mean, you can move the it from the fourth line to the third line if you have it. Milat, and then put a plus. Kara, kankana, sankula, sankwanitam. Kwa sound, sankwanitam. Adiruhya tatah phanirajapanan nanrute bhavata mridupadarucha kalashinjitanu manjumilat karakankana sankula sankwanitam.
Adiruhya tatah panirajapanan nanrute bhavata mridupadarucha Kalashinjitanu manjumilat karakankana sankula sankwanitam.
Adhiruhya tatah panirajapanan nanrute bhavata mridupadarucha kalashinchitanupuраmanजुमिलत् karakankana sankula sankvanitam.
That's a 10. Jahrushuf pashupastu tushurmunayo vabrushuf kusumani surendra ganaha Twahi nrityati maruta geha pate paripahi samam twamadhanta gadhat. So when you were dancing in this horn, of course the gopas and everybody were extremely happy because they were excited to see you this. And similarly, all the gods and sages and everybody blessed you and showered flowers on you. So you, O Lord, who then Maruta geha pate, the one who lives in Guruvayur, who danced on Kalia and then you humbled his pride, right? Doing that. Similarly, please Tomadhanta Gadat, please eradicate all the ailments and diseases I'm also having. So Jahrushuhu is there, put a if. Jahrushuf Pashupas Tutushur Munayo plus then Babrushuhu is there. So and then put a ich sound. Babrushuh Kusumani Surendra Ganaha Twai Nrityati Maruta Gehapate plus Paripahi Samam Twamadanta Gadat. Jahrushuf Pashupastu Tushurmunayo Babrushuf Kusumani Surendra Ganaha Twahi Nrityati Maruta Gehapate Paripahi Samam Twamadanta Gadat.
Jahrushuf pashupastu tushurmunayo vavrushuh kusumani surendra ganaha Vayi nrityati maruta geha pate paripahi samam tvamadhanta gadat.
Jahrushuh pashupastu tushur munayo vavrushuh kusumani surendra ganaha Tvayi nrityati maruta geha pate paripahi samam tvamadanta gadat. Shri Krishna
Namaha. In the class here. Sandhanandhavabodhatmakamanupamitam kaladeshavadebhyam nirmuktam nityamuktam nigamashatasahasrena nirbhasyamanam aspashtam vrishtamatre punarurupurushartatmakam brahmatattvam tattavad bhati sakshat gurupavanapure hanta bhagyam janah kahena vacha manasendriyerva बुद्ध्यात्मना वा प्रकृते स्वभावात् करोमि यत् सकलं परस्मै नारायणायेति समर्पयामि.